Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the show. I am super excited for our guest today. He is a practical physicist turned entrepreneur, endurance athlete, and tech founder. He's experienced with cutting edge research at institutions like the University of Oxford, has a passion for triathlon, competing in Olympic distance in 2:06 and a half Ironman and 4:34. Wow. His mission is to revolutionize training through machine learning and create personalized data-driven coaching for athletes. He is the founder of AI Endurance. Please welcome Markus Rummel. Markus, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
I'm super excited for this conversation. And as you know, I love talking about the endurance mindset. So Markus, how has your endurance mindset impacted your life unexpectedly?
Yeah, I would say that it has really brought me onto this weird path from like you said, being a theoretical physicist to entrepreneur. And I don't think if I would have had the endurance bug, that would have ever happened, because it just so happened that I was working on this project, side project, while I was still a physicist. And the only reason I cared about it so much is because I cared so much about my FTP and my 5K and all these things, right? So yeah, I would say in that sense, it has impacted me quite a bit, and obviously also just like in general, lifestyle wise. I think I was at that point when I went to university. I always played soccer in high school, and then I just didn't do anything for a few years, and I could just, even in my early 20s, I could tell I was just not feeling great, not healthy. And when I got into endurance sports, that really I feel better now than I did when I felt when I was 21. So
That's, you know, I I feel the same way. I'm much healthier and sort of, I don't know, long lasting at 52 than I was when I was 25. And it is because of, to your point, the lifestyle that the endurance mindset and endurance racing gives us. I'd love to unpack a little bit more that transition from university, from study, from academics into entrepreneurship, and go a little bit deeper on any specifics of, like, you know, a training or your mentality or your routine that kind of helped you kind of make that jump from one to the other?
yeah, so I would say, I mean, like I said, I always cared about my performances, and I always thought there was a lot in the data, and I tried different training programs and training regimes, and some had no success and others had um, more success, a lot of success. And I also see my friends, and I'm like, they're like doing something totally different, but it seems to work for them, or it sometimes also doesn't work for them. But it really kind of struck that um, individualization to me, a personalization to me. And I really think that the data, I thought that 5 years ago, I still think it, that there's so much in the data that we're not necessarily harvesting and taking advantage of. And it was always that thought that just like basically drove me and pushed me, because I just saw such a big opportunity. And, going from university, obviously in university is very, I was working as a research assistant, as a postdoc, and it's a very different kind of workflow than building an app, because you have a project, you're like, okay, I want to answer this question. I want to find out something new about this question. I did some programming then. I would say most of the results were programming driven, but they were very different programming. So you would just like run a program, get the result, publish the result, throw away the program, start a new project, right? And obviously apps and everything is very different to that. So I think it was a very steep learning curve. There was a lot that I had to learn, and I was completely clueless about 99%. And Yeah, but I think it helps when you have a strong motivation, because then, and I'm also an optimist, so I was like, in my mind, it wasn't that bad as it actually was, and it probably helped me. I only realized bit by bit how hard it is, and then yeah, I think that strong motivation, and endurance sports is very similar in many ways too, right? It's like you don't immediately get results, you just kind of have to stick to it. You have to be consistent. You have to keep working. You have to keep putting the work in, and only after a while you get some results. And there's a lot of learning too, right? There's a lot of things. I remember when I first started, I just did intervals like crazy, and then I was injured because I was just like never stretching, never doing any core work, nothing. You know, yeah. So I think this is very similar.
So just feeding off of that, doing interval training without the core, without the stretching, sort of leads to injury. Um, how could we relate that to business, to running a business, right? Like, there's got to be some sort of similarity there where, not doing the prep or not doing the research or not doing something leads to a decision that went the wrong way.
Yeah. So I think something in that space would be, I remember I had like something in my mind, which would be like the first version of the app. And I was like, oh, it'll be so cool. You can kind of have a training plan, calendar, and then you'll move things around, and it'll tell you how that would change your performance at the end of the day. And I built it. It took me forever. And then the moment I had it, I was like, oh, this sucks. This is horrible. And I'm like, nobody's ever going to use this. This is like, what would you do now? Would you like go through all the possible permutations of how you could exchange your training and then see which one is like the best? Like, nobody's going to do that. I'm not even going to do that. So I think it's like you do something, you think it's a good idea, and then you get the result, and then you're like, oh no, this is not good. Like, I need to do this differently, right? But I think part of it is also just like to a certain extent, you just have to go through it. It's good to, like, you don't have to make every mistake possible, right? But certain mistakes, I think you just have to make, because they give you a true appreciation for, what could go wrong, how hard it is, and what's the right way to do things. So, when I got injured, um, I have like notoriously weak Achilles tendons, or like calf muscles more like. So I really know what that feels like, and what it's like to not be able to run for like a couple of years. So whenever I get to start to have the issues now, I'm just like militant about doing my physio, because I know what that otherwise will end up like. So yeah, in that sense, yeah.
I've I've got similar Achilles challenges, and we'll talk offline about that, because I'd love to know your solution. And Marcus, you were talking about the first version of the app, and you got it finished, and you're telling yourself, "Well, this might not. This kind of sucks," or this. We always like look back at ourselves and be like, this isn't really good enough. But I'd love to know, when did you realize that you actually had something that's viable for the market? Like, when was that moment that the tinkering, you got to the point of tinkering, development, version 1, 2, 3, 100, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, at some point you said, "You know what? This is ready for prime time." Can you walk us through that process or that thinking?
Yeah, I don't think that was a step point in time where that really happened. It's more like I think it's more like a continuous process where the app just sucks less and less and less over time. And it's just like, in the beginning, there were some people who there's very few people who could get value out of it, you know? And obviously, when I first found those people, that was amazing, because now there is someone who is, first of all, who I don't know, who's not doing this as a favor. This is, if anyone's listening who wants to start a business, don't ever give anything to your friends or family. They'll just tell you that it's nice because they want to be nice to you, but they're probably lying, I mean, they're definitely lying. So, yeah, when I found those first people who were like complete strangers, and they're paying for the product, and they are telling you everything that's wrong with it. That was like, to me, that was like the inflection point, because then you can just go from there. Like, you have that, like, And it's pretty obvious, if you're honest to yourself and if you're in it, then you know exactly what they're talking about right away. And sometimes when you are the builder, then you get your priorities mixed up, I would say. Like, I really want to do this, or I really want to do that. But like, those people, they remind you what the customer actually cares about and what are their biggest pain points. And then, yeah, I would say that was probably like maybe after a year or so after starting the business, um or like, starting to work on it, that's when that first feedback came. And then it's just been a continuous process of, ideally, I think you'd always look at the business and you'd be like, what is the weakest link right now? What is the thing that sucks the most? And then you work on that and just make that good. And then you look at afterwards, you look at what's the worst thing right now. Together with having some kind of vision with like, what should this actually be like? What do I really envision for this long term? And sometimes you can by fixing the little things, you can kind of like that. You never get to that. So sometimes you think you have to make yourself like, okay, now I'm just like gonna ignore the little things for a little bit, and I'm gonna put this big thing forward. Um, but yeah, that's what I would say to that. Yeah.
I really like how you frame that, of fixing the weakest link right now, right? Let's make a little bit of progress. And it's similar to training, right? It's like you look over your race, what's your weakest component, right? For me, last year was my cycling. And so this year I'm focusing almost 100% exclusively on cycling, and it's having an impact. Um, so we've been teasing the audience about your app. Marcus, tell us a lot. Give us what it does, what it is, how it's impacting your athletes.
Yeah. So basically, it's called AI Endurance, and it's an app. You can get it on App Store, Play Store, also on the website. And it basically it gives you a personalized plan and coaches you along the way to your goal. So it's a triathlon podcast, so we have everything from sprint to Ironman, plus customization. You can also target maybe different things and duathlons along the way and things like that, or running, cycling races along the way. And then you can also use it just as a pure runner or as a pure cyclist. And what I would say is unique about it is that when you sign up, you connect your Garmin, your Strava, and we take all the data that we can get, basically, all the data that they allow us to take. And then we build we call it a digital twin. So we basically have a model where we try to model how you respond to different trainings. So if you do this kind of training, your FTP is going to be X during the race that you care about. And if you do this other kind of training, it might be 10% more or 10% less. And the more data we have on you, the more and the better we can model that. And after we did that, we find the most optimal plan for you, so your performance is actually the best possible on your event date, with all your constraints. How much time you have for each sport, how much time you have for each sport on each day of the week, and so on and so forth. So we're really like turning this process of how should I train into a math problem, basically, with my constraints and my strengths and weaknesses and everything that is in my data. What's the best possible way for me to train? And then we lay it out for you. And this is like quite a process. We ingest like as many fit files from Garmin as we can, and we do like a detailed analysis and everything. That's, by the way, why once you sign up, it takes forever till your account is ready. You should always think that that's a good sign, because if you immediately get your training plan, then that means there wasn't a lot of work there. Anyways, and then where was I going? Yeah, so we basically have your training figured out as like a math problem, but then on the other side, and in reality, we're obviously not going to execute that plan to perfection like a robot. Like, nobody is ever going to do that, probably even for a single week of the plan, right? We all get sick. We all have, work commitments. We I don't know, things happen, injuries, things happen, right? And And basically that's the second big part of our app, is to keep people on track and, make realistically the best out of this optimal plan as possible. So we have various things where, for instance, you can connect your Aura Ring and your Whoop band and your Garmin overnight sleep data, and then we can constantly analyze that. And every morning, you can tell us how you feel too. And then every morning, we basically tell you, should you do what actually was planned, or should we make a modification? We have a pretty advanced chatbot that is based on Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is like one of the, together with ChatGPT and Claude, those are like the three best models right now, I would say, where you can ask any kind of questions. And also that chatbot has like the ability to actually change your training. So you can say, you know what, I actually like, this is good, but I actually really like over-unders, or I really like this coach's kind of style of training, and your swim workouts suck. I really want a different kind of swim workout. And I want it to be like this and like that. And that all works. And like, it amazes me how well it works, because I built it and I was like, okay, let's see how well this actually works. And everything I threw at it, it just did it perfectly, and yeah, so those are, I would say, are the two big parts of how this app works and how it's different to most other apps out there.
That's awesome. Any testimonial story that, you've had a user training at X use the app and came out as Y that you could share?
Yeah, many. Like we have a bunch on the website, we have a bunch in social media and so on. Where, I mean, the nice thing about this is it tells you if you are going to follow this training, then you're going to run your 5K in, maybe 19 minutes and 49 seconds. So it really is that thing where you're like, oh, let's see. So, and we do check that data too, where we see how compliant people, depending on how compliant people are with the actual plan, and then their actual outcome. And yeah, we see like statistically, we see like great results there. And there's many people that have reached out to us where they were like, I didn't think I could do this, but you guys told me I could do it. And then I followed the training and I did it. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Markus, changing topics a little bit, I'd love to know more about you, sort of how you got into this, how you go all the way back to sort of childhood and walk us through your journey.
Yeah, I was always, I would say I'm a mediocre triathlete with mediocre medium talent who never got discovered. Like where I grew up in a small town in Germany, there was just soccer. And I was not very good. I remember not like making the team, but sitting on the bench the whole game. And then I remember when we would do the running training, I was always the best. And I was like, why am I the best at the running training when I don't even play, But, in soccer, different things are important, like how well you can do the ball and stuff. And I was not very good at that. But yeah, so when I went to university, like I was mentioning earlier, I just did nothing for a while. And then, I don't know, I just forced myself to do some running and some swimming. And I always enjoyed running. Swimming, I still don't enjoy. Never have, never will. But when I go swimming twice a week and I work a lot, so I sit on my desk a lot, so I never feel a single inch of pain. So that alone makes it worth it for me. I'm like, okay, I gotta go to the pool twice a week. My back clearly loves this. Yeah, and then I remember cycling was really what got it started for me, where I really got into it, because I had a friend. Well, we didn't know each other at first, but I just remember him always cycling in his full cycling kit to the university. He lived like 30 kilometers away, so he would like cycle for 30 meters and go back. And we were all like, what is this guy? Like, this guy is like so weird. Like, what is his clothes that he's wearing? And like, I didn't even know like professional cycling or anything, I was like, what is this? Like, what's he doing? Anyways, so we're like, we became friends, and he was like, why don't you come? Like, why don't you try it out? And he's like, let's not do road biking, let's do mountain biking. And I could just not, like, I thought of myself, as a cocky 25-year-old, I thought I was fit. And we just like went, and he just like went for hours. And And I was asking him, like, is this exhausting for you? I'm like completely exhausted. And he was like, it's kind of like when you go like clothes shopping with your mom or so. And I'm like, this can't be true, right? But yeah, I just loved it, like being in the forest and just like being out there for hours and feeling the pain, and just like conquering all these little hills. And I was just like hooked, like basically immediately. And then yeah, I moved to so I studied in Aachen, which is like a small town in Germany, and I went to Hamburg, which is completely flat. For my PhD, I went to Hamburg, and then I bought a road bike because I was like, okay, there's no mountain biking here, so I'll just buy a road bike. And then I was like, well, I'd always kind of done the running and swimming anyway, so let me try a triathlon. And Hamburg has this really big, like, uh, at the time it was like an ITU race too, but they had a race the day before where everybody could participate, and it was I think at the time it was for sure the biggest race in Germany. It was like tens of thousands of people, to the point that it's like now I'm almost like, well, do you really want to do that? Because it's like, you have all these staggered starts and there's so many people. But at the time I remember thinking it was like the coolest thing ever. And yeah, also very humbling, like I thought I had trained, I probably had gone on like 5 runs before or something. It's just like everybody, all these people like overtaking me, and I'm like, I thought I had trained, I thought I was good at this. But yeah, and then I just got more and more into it. Like you said, I went to Oxford, so my first postdoc was in Oxford, and then I joined like a cycling group there, which again was like another level of like, it's like, whoa, these guys are so fast, like this is like a completely different level. I wanna be like that, And then there's also, I was in a triathlon club in Oxford, and then I saw how other people did it and so on. And then those times that you mentioned, they're a few years back, but yeah, that's when I think I had finally kind of figured out how I could fit it in with my having, I don't know, 10 hours a week of training and being most efficient about it, and actually kind of getting good results out of it.
Yeah. And then I guess at some point they merge together, right? You're doing your PhD, doing this research, and you're asking yourself the question, like, how can that curiosity, right? That there's got to be a better way. And you started developing the app. So when did you start working with technology, and how did that all come together?
Yeah, so in my so when I was in Oxford, I think, yeah. So after Oxford, I went to Canada, to where I'm now in Hamilton. McMaster University was my second postdoc uh, there, and here too I was working on like X-ray data. So we're like data from X-ray satellites, where we're kind of like, looking for hints of particles that may or may not exist, and this kind of data analysis research. And we were using a bunch of machine learning methods then. People forget there was already an AI hype back in, I don't know, this was probably like 2017, 16, 2016, 2017. People were like, oh, there's a massive hype around machine learning, not comparable to today's hype though. I think it was a hype among like people in research and so on, but not the general public. That really only started with ChatGPT, right? But yeah, it was a hype for sure. And I just remember thinking, I actually remember there was a talk here at McMaster University where someone who works in machine learning, like a machine learning researcher, came, and he was like, it's so easy. You just install this package, TensorFlow, and you put the data in and you get something out. And that's it. And I was like, wow, that is actually really easy. And then we applied that to our project that we were doing at the time. But I think that's when I kind of got the idea that it's like, especially because it's so easy, because I was like somewhat frustrated at the time with Strava, especially with Strava. I was like a big Strava fan from 2012 on. I still am. I still look after every ride. I actually go there for the analysis, which is not the best analysis. I think it's just because I'm used to it. And I remember thinking, why are they not doing anything? Why are they not like um, learning on the data and giving us training programs. And, like now it's all kind of, everybody's kind of starting to do it, I would say. But like 5 years ago, nobody was doing anything. And because there is so much data, right? There's like literally power data, heart rate data, cadence data, for running pace, for like every second of every activity. And the beauty of it is too that it all flows automatically to an app. You don't have to jump through any hoops as the user. You just connect it once and then it just comes, right? And if you think about nutrition, for example, it's completely different, right? Like you have to enter it. I mean, things getting better, but the other day I was using a feature from an app we won't name, where you're like supposed to scan it, and it was a burrito, and they told me it was like a fried egg or something. I was like, okay, this can't be that good then, Um, and yeah, anyway, so I really just started to put the data my own data into these models that I was designing, to actually predict. So basically you'd be like, okay, if I do this kind of training, these times in all these zones and over all these months, then what should be my FTP now and now and now and now every week, basically. And with these models, you can just kind of train the models, and then you can say, okay, it would have predicted it was, I don't know, 250 in August. And then you look at what it actually was. It was 240. So you kind of like get a feel for how accurate it is. And then I was getting my friends to give me all their data. So I wasn't thinking about an app at all. I was just like, oh, this is so cool that I can actually do this. And the whole process of getting the fit files and running the model and making a prediction probably took like, I don't know, like 25 minutes or something. And like when I got my friends to give me that data, I didn't have an API integration with Strava or Garmin, right? So they just had to give it to me on Dropbox or something like that. And I remember doing it with like maybe like 10 or so of my friends, and having the models run for them and seeing that the training would be different and the results would be different. And I was like, oh, this is actually really what I thought it would be and what it should be. And that's where I got really motivated. And I think that's where it came into my head, where I was like, maybe everybody should have this. Maybe I should make an app. How hard can it be, right?
That's awesome. It gives me, I don't know, comfort hearing that story, because there's so many projects that I tinker with that I think are good ideas, and it benefits me, and maybe doesn't actually get to the mainstream, but at some point in time, maybe one of these things will. Or I guess if you had a magic wand on the business front, what would you wish for? What's the next obstacle you're struggling to get through?
Yeah. Well, we had some, let's call it like technical debt. So when we built the app first, there was a lot of weird stuff that we did and how we defined the database and so on. And that has always helped me back a lot the last 2 years. And we're actually waving that. It's not a magical wand. This is a wand. Waving that wand now to just like get rid of it and do it properly. And probably like 1 or 2 weeks away from being done with that. And then, because there's so many cool things that I really want to do that was kind of not possible right now with the current infrastructure. And for instance, durability. I'm sure you've been following that a lot. I feel like that is like a huge opportunity right now. Everybody already talks about it. If you go on Reddit, everybody talks about their durability, and and clearly the pros talk about it a lot. It's very important. Maybe you should quickly define it. Basically, not just your threshold matters, but like how long you can actually hold a certain percentage of your threshold, or how much you were able to. This is more like important for pro cycling. How much you can perform at the end of like 6 hours and you're already fatigued. Like, that's obviously different from what you can do when you're fresh as a daisy and you're just like, haven't had all that fatigue yet. And if you think about the events that most of us are doing, there are typically events where durability is important. I mean, 5Ks are not, but, half distance, probably Olympic triathlons are and beyond, everything is very much governed by durability, as everybody intuitively knows, And there's been a lot of progress recently in the research on how to measure that. And if you look at the app landscape right now, I'm not aware of an app that tells you your durability, specifies that in some way right now. There's something in Training Peaks, but it's not exactly what I think it can be. It's a more rough measure. But yeah, I think that our goal is really to first of all measure that so people can really see it and can see it in the detail and in the time spans that they care about. Do I care about 2 hours, or do I care about 6 hours, or whatever event they care about, and then to be able to optimize it. So just like we're optimizing thresholds now. So when you do a sprint triathlon, we're optimizing your 5K time and your critical power. And when you're training for an Ironman, we're optimizing your endurance power and your endurance pace. So we don't just want to optimize your endurance power and your endurance pace for your Ironman. We also want to optimize your marathon durability and your, whatever 5-6 hours cycling durability. And that's really what matters to people and what makes them succeed, right? So we're very excited about that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I haven't put much thought into that, and now you've got my curiosity spinning. So last question, 5 years from now, where's the app? Where's the business? What's the vision?
Yeah, I think people are going to train more and more with AI. I think this is pretty obvious, and seeing the trends. And there is always the question: do they just do it by themselves with the app, or do they do it with the coach? And I think both will be there. I think there will be options for both. Maybe, I mean, we're obviously pursuing right now that you're doing it by yourself, but I think there will be plenty of options, and it'll be great for coaches too, because I think they'll be able to focus more on, the things that matter and less on the nitty gritty. And I think it's just going to be good. Like, it's going to be a very cool world in the sense that you're going to have access to insights that no human being could ever figure out. Nobody can crunch the data this way. This is like not necessarily like because AI is gonna so smart or whatever. This is just because there's lots of data and you can run programs and you can make these very accessible to people. And then the LLMs also play a big role, I think, in just like explaining it to everyone and like having people interactions about it, but not so much in the, it's called the number crunching or the numerical analysis. And yeah, I think it'll become, we're basically in a transition from the world from 5 years ago where you would look at an app and it would tell you like, what's my best 20-minute power? What's my best 5-minute power? And it's like this algorithm that takes 1 millisecond, and anybody in high school can program, and we're going to a world where it's like, you're amazed what it can do for you,
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. You've got me like creative juices spinning. I'm so curious to get into the app, to look at what I love about what you're describing, right? Is we're all looking for more insights that drive performance, that drive results, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and you're right. There's no amount of human being time that could analyze your history and your performance data like you can in technology that you're using. Marcus, that's fantastic. If an audience member wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Markus@aiendurance.com. Probably email is the best. You can go to the website. There's also a contact page. I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's probably the best way.
Fantastic. And we'll include those links in the show notes. Um, Marcus, thank you for being on the show today. Our conversation went in many different directions, but I loved how you sort of enlightened us on your curiosity and the tinkering, and how what you were trying to solve for yourself turned into an application that's really for the public, right? And it's one that I can't. I'm so excited that it exists, right? Being able to change and update your training schedule according to the performance you want within your marathon time, within your cycling times. I can't wait to see what you guys continue to do. So audience members, if you got some value out of today's show, please please subscribe to us. Let's follow Markus and the technology that him and his team are building. And ultimately, let's start using this so that we can improve our performance. Markus, it's been great having you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thanks. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.